Why is it we can never talk about the mistakes or the bullshit on our quote unquote on our own side? Why do we have to ignore it? Because ignoring it is just it's anti-intellectual.
Give you 3 guesses as to which direction this is going. Hey there, YouTube, Felfop here. Now, the first time that I really had any contact with Woolly Bumblebee was on a video I made about 7 months ago about Gamergate supporters and trying to recruit some of them into the men's rights movement. She came in and left this comment basically saying that the men's rights movement doesn't do anything, that fathers' rights activists are really the way to go, and yada yada, which I found a little confusing because at that time I understood that she'd been around for a while. And it didn't take me any time at all to realize that, you know, the men's rights issues are really intertwined just with the family court issues, particularly like domestic violence law, for example. All it takes is an accusation for a person to lose access to their children. So it was confusing to me that she made this comment to begin with. And then I did a little bit of research into her, and I saw there was a lot of a scandal around her and whatnot, and I just kind of let it be at that. But recently I've seen more and more of her anti-activism cropping up. It's kind of, it appears to me like she is basically the Jenny McDermott of the men's rights movement. She's a hanger-on that's basically a saboteur, just wants to shit in the punch bowl for everybody. So let me take a look and walk you through some of her history as I see it. The first thing that's noteworthy about Woolly Bumblebee was she was a high-ranking member of A Voice for Men in Canada until she was kicked out of that position for whatever reason. I'm going to try to keep this as drama-free as possible throughout the entire video. Stay away from the he says, she says. No matter who you believe, both parties agree that she generated about $6,000 for an Earl Silverman domestic violence shelter for men that she was opening in Earl Silverman's name. And Earl Silverman, for those of you who aren't aware, was a Canadian man who tried in vain to get federal funding for a domestic violence shelter for men. He ran one out of his own pocket in Canada and eventually killed himself when he went bankrupt and everything fell apart. So there was some heartstring pulling there, and she was able to generate that $6,000 in a large part through A Voice for Men still continuing to work with her and support this endeavor. Now, she took that money and just, for about a year, didn't really do anything with it. And now, on down the road, she says, well, I gave the money back, and there's, you know, whatever, they argue about that all they want. The fact of the matter is, for about a year, she held on to the $6,000 that came out of the A Voice for Men war chest and went into her pocket, and for a year she held it, which was a year that that money wasn't doing anything for men's rights. Instead, it was doing something for Woolly Bumblebee at the very best. It could have just been sitting there doing nothing. But what's crazy is how she reacted when A Voice for Men started calling her out on it. She flipped out and went crazy anti-men's rights activist, all of a sudden flipped on a dime and started attacking all the people she'd been working with before, and to the point where it's even, she's still butthurt about it now, to the point where she made comments like when I first showed up into the men's rights movement, and she said, no, you need to be a father's rights activist. She still is trying to poison the well against A Voice for Men, like they need that help. So there's a great example to begin with of the kind of activism you get out of Woolly Bumblebee. The next thing worth mentioning is when Sargon of Akkad started the petition to suspend social justice courses on college campuses until they were properly vetted, Woolly Bumblebee didn't just voice opposition like some other people did, but she really went ballistic. She did many long streams about it, and when people didn't give her enough attention on it, she did this silly gotcha thing with Sargon. To begin with, the having a huge problem with the petition, not personally I disagreed with her on that, but whether you disagree with her on that or not, the way that she went about it was extremely aggressive, and it basically just created infighting. And she was well aware of that. There's no way she couldn't be aware of it. But the stupid gotcha thing that she did afterwards is absolutely ridiculous. She gets Sargon saying that he thinks Anita Sarkeesian is legitimately serious in what she's doing, and then a year later getting him saying that he doesn't think she's serious, or vice versa. But at any rate, the dates in the videos were so far apart, it's very easily that he could have changed position by then. But that's not even hypocrisy. But she's trying to call it hypocrisy. But let me give you an example of some actual hypocrisy on the account of Woolly Bumblebee.
It's like this whole thing with Anita Sarkeesian, right? She says, people are attacking me because I'm a woman. No, it's not because you're a woman. It's because you have stupid ideas. If you say one thing wrong or you disagree with one major person, like say like Sargon of Akkad or Milo Yiannopoulos or Lauren Southern or any of these, you know, well-known anti-feminists, you'll get dogpiled. So you people are just as bad, if not worse in some respects, than the people you claim to be against. When I said, learn from the feminists, learn what they've done, learn what works. No, we don't want to do that. We don't want to be like feminists. Well, they're fucking kicking your ass everywhere. They're in schools. They're in government. I mean, you name it, feminism is there. When people are like, you're anti-feminist, I'm usually like, no, I'm just anti-stupid. Hey, everybody. So today we're going to talk about equality, feminist style. Because I have a lot of sympathy for men who are abused, and for men who lose custody of their children, and for men who are falsely accused of rape, and for men who are suicidal. I have the utmost compassion for these people, and I seriously advocate, you know, for the rights of men in the areas where they are lacking, especially family courts and stuff. I have a lot of sympathy for men. 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 And I seriously advocate, you know, for the rights of men in the areas where they are lacking, especially family courts and stuff.
And these patterns continue. She recently had a problem with Feminist Flow and was a bunch of drama and hangouts and arguing and accusing him of all kinds of stuff. And it's all about persecution complex stuff, right? So then she gets somebody to send her a message, or a screen cap rather, from a Skype group that she was not in called the Shit Lab. Now, that Skype group had a number of people in it. It was started by Kraut and T, and it was just, you know, what you'd expect, a bunch of shitlords sitting around talking. But she had this incriminating screen cap, and so she threatens Feminist Flow with it in a roundabout way. Is there anything you want to say about this before I go public? But she got this information somehow, won't tell anybody who her source was. So the Shit Lab actually ended up closing over this, and there's a lot of mistrust between the members, especially the ones that aren't as quote-unquote popular or whatever, or well-known. So she basically caused a splintering and a fracturing because of her own personal ego. And yeah, this is typical of what she does. This is her level of activism, destroy shit in her wake to keep herself looking good. So she claims the men's rights movement is ineffective, yet when the men's rights movement entrusted her with over $6,000 to effect change, she kept the money in her own coffers and didn't effect any change. When they called her out on that, she went public and made a huge drama fit. When she disagreed with Sargon's petition, she went public and made a huge drama fit. And when not enough people sided with her, she went personal, attacking Sargon for silly stuff, unrelated silly stuff. We have somebody who claims that they care for men's rights, but claims that they feel that men's rights should follow some of what feminists does, but then claims that they're hypocritical if they do so. She was back and forth and ideologically completely unfounded. She just goes back and forth wherever the wind blows. Again, this is like a Jenny McDermott of the men's rights movement. She was willing to destroy things in her wake in order to keep herself propped up and looking as good as possible, at least in her own mind. I hope that this at least serves to illuminate a little bit as to why I wouldn't trust her with anything, any information at all. And I personally feel we should be kind of treated like Jenny McDermott. We'll just point at her as a lolcow, because beyond that, she's worthless. As more than worthless, she's damaging. That's all I got to say about that. Have a good day.
I'm criticizing the argument from, say, Milo or whoever. It doesn't have anything to do with you, you know, and you get these, I guess, quote unquote, fanboys or fangirls, you know, dogpiling you. And it's like, what is this? Like, this wasn't, I did what they do to people like Anita Sarkeesian.